It was a cold, moonless night when Alan and his companions settled into their respective rooms. The castle, despite its outward grandeur, held an eerie emptiness that seemed to gnaw at the very soul. Alan, unable to sleep, found himself wandering the dimly lit corridors, drawn by an inexplicable force. His footsteps echoed softly against the stone floors as he explored the labyrinthine passages, each turn and corner feeling like a step deeper into the abyss. Unbeknownst to Alan, Klove was watching. The servant's eyes, cold and calculating, followed Alan's every move. Klove had been waiting for this moment, the culmination of years of servitude and unwavering loyalty to his deceased master. Tonight, the plan would come to fruition. Tonight, Count Dracula would rise again. Alan's curiosity led him to a large, ornate door at the end of a secluded hallway. He hesitated for a moment, feeling a chill run down his spine. Pushing the door open, he entered what appeared to be an old chapel. The room was dominated by a grand, ancient altar, its surface covered in dust and cobwebs. At the center of the altar lay an intricately carved stone sarcophagus, the lid bearing the crest of the Dracula family. As Alan approached the sarcophagus, a sense of dread washed over him. He felt an invisible hand tightening around his heart, urging him to turn back. But his curiosity overpowered his fear, and he leaned in to examine the carvings. The symbols were unfamiliar, yet they radiated a malevolent energy that seemed to seep into his very bones. Suddenly, a sharp sound pierced the silence. Alan spun around, but before he could react, Klove emerged from the shadows. In a swift, brutal motion, Klove struck Alan on the head with a heavy iron candlestick. Alan crumpled to the ground, unconscious, his blood pooling on the cold stone floor. Klove moved with a practiced efficiency, dragging Alan's limp body towards the altar. He heaved the heavy lid of the sarcophagus open, revealing an empty interior lined with crimson silk. Klove's expression remained stoic as he hoisted Alan into the sarcophagus, arranging his body with a disturbing care. With a ritualistic precision, Klove retrieved a ceremonial dagger from a hidden compartment beneath the altar. The blade was ancient, its surface etched with dark runes that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Klove raised the dagger high above Alan's prone form, his eyes devoid of any emotion. The blade descended swiftly, cutting deep into Alan's flesh. Blood flowed freely, pooling in the bottom of the sarcophagus. Klove worked methodically, collecting the blood in a large, ornate chalice. The air grew thick with the metallic scent of blood, mingling with the dust and decay of the chapel. Klove placed the chalice on the altar, beside a set of ancient texts and relics. Reciting an incantation in a long-dead language, Klove began the resurrection ritual. His voice echoed through the chapel, the words carrying an unnatural weight. The candles flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the walls as the power of the incantation grew. Klove's eyes glowed with a fanatical fervor, his voice rising to a fever pitch. The blood in the chalice began to bubble and froth, a dark energy swirling within its depths. Klove took the chalice in his hands and poured the blood into a shallow basin carved into the altar. The blood seemed to come alive, seeping into the cracks and crevices of the stone, drawn towards the sarcophagus. A low, guttural growl emanated from the sarcophagus, resonating through the chapel. The air grew colder, and a palpable sense of evil filled the room. Klove stepped back, his eyes fixed on the sarcophagus as the ground beneath him trembled. The ritual was working. Dracula was awakening. The lid of the sarcophagus began to shift, moving as if guided by an unseen force. A dark mist seeped out from the gaps, coiling and writhing like a living entity. Klove watched in rapt anticipation, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The lid slid open fully, revealing the blood-soaked interior. From within the sarcophagus, a figure began to emerge. Dracula, the Prince of Darkness, rose from his slumber. His form was gaunt and skeletal, his skin a deathly pallor. But as he drank in the air, his body began to rejuvenate, muscles knitting together and color returning to his flesh. His eyes, burning with an unholy light, locked onto Klove. Klove fell to his knees, bowing his head in reverence. "Master," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I have brought you back, as I promised." Dracula stepped out of the sarcophagus, his presence dominating the room. He looked down at Klove, a sinister smile playing on his lips. "You have done well, my loyal servant," Dracula said, his voice smooth and commanding. "Rise." Klove stood, his eyes filled with a mix of awe and fear. Dracula's gaze shifted to Alan's lifeless body. "And this one," Dracula mused, "shall serve as the first of many sacrifices." Dracula turned his attention back to Klove. "Prepare the others," he commanded. "We have much work to do." Klove bowed deeply. "Yes, master, it shall be done." As Klove hurried to carry out his master's orders, Dracula surveyed his surroundings, his senses awakening to the new world. He could feel the presence of the other guests within the castle walls, their hearts beating with the rhythm of life. A predatory hunger stirred within him, and he reveled in the thought of the hunt. The resurrection was complete. Dracula, the Prince of Darkness, had returned. And with his return, a reign of terror was about to descend upon the unsuspecting visitors of the castle. The ancient evil had been reborn, and the night belonged to him once more. The chapter begins with a grim and unsettling atmosphere as the night deepens around the foreboding Castle Dracula. The castle's desolation and eerie silence set the stage for the dark ritual that is about to unfold. Klove, the loyal and malevolent servant of Count Dracula, is consumed with the single-minded goal of resurrecting his master. The chapter opens with Klove's chilling preparation for the resurrection ritual. Having previously slain Alan, Klove now uses Alan's blood as a crucial element in the dark incantations. His actions are driven by a twisted sense of duty and reverence towards Dracula. Klove chants ancient incantations and performs arcane rites, all the while surrounded by the remnants of the ritualistic preparations. The atmosphere is charged with malevolent energy as Klove meticulously follows the instructions handed down through generations of dark practitioners. As Klove completes the ritual, the air in the castle grows frigid, and an unnatural darkness descends. The process of resurrection is depicted with intense and dramatic imagery. Dracula's lifeless body begins to stir, and a powerful, otherworldly force reanimates him. The Count's return to life is marked by a violent upheaval of energy, and Dracula emerges from his coffin with a renewed, terrifying vigor. Dracula's awakening is portrayed with a sense of grandeur and horror. His first moments are characterized by an insatiable hunger and a predatory gaze, emphasizing his return as a formidable and malevolent force. The scene captures the essence of Dracula's power and the dread he instills in those around him. Meanwhile, Helen, who has been subjected to Dracula's hypnotic influence, is drawn towards him. Her resistance is futile as Dracula's influence over her intensifies. In a sinister and hypnotic sequence, Dracula bites Helen, marking her transformation into one of his own kind. This transformation is depicted with vivid and unsettling detail, illustrating Helen's struggle and eventual surrender to her new vampiric nature. Helen's change is both physical and psychological. The chapter delves into the horror of her transformation, portraying her initial fear and confusion as she comes to terms with her new identity. The transformation is complete, and Helen becomes a part of Dracula's Dark Legion. In the midst of the chaos and terror, Charles and Diana, who have been grappling with the horrors of the castle, realize the urgency of their situation. The chapter builds tension as they navigate the perilous conditions within the castle, driven by their determination to escape Dracula's clutches. Their escape is fraught with danger and close calls. They maneuver through the castle's dark corridors, avoiding Dracula and his minions. The suspense is palpable as they narrowly evade capture, their fear and desperation adding to the intensity of the scene. Despite their efforts, they are forced to make the heartbreaking decision to leave Helen behind. The chapter captures the emotional weight of this decision, highlighting their sense of helplessness and the sorrow of abandoning a loved one to such a fate. Their escape is a narrow one, but they manage to flee the castle, escaping the immediate threat but leaving behind the horrors they have witnessed.